Your phone buzzes. You look. Nothing important. You look again anyway. You know this feeling. You have felt it 100 times today, maybe more. But here is what almost nobody tells you. The urge pulling your thumb toward that screen is not new. It is not even close to new. It is 300,000 years old, and it did not evolve for phones. It evolved to keep you alive. To understand why, you have to go back. Way back. Before smartphones, before agriculture, before cities of any kind. Back to a world where your ancestors woke up every single morning with one unsolved problem sitting on their chest. Where is the food today? There was no schedule, no grocery store, no guarantee of anything. Some days a berry bush was stripped bare by other animals in the night. Other days it was heavy with fruit, more than one person could carry. Some days the hunt failed completely, hours of tracking ending in nothing. Other days it brought back more meat than the whole group could eat before it spoiled. Nobody could predict which kind of day it would be. And that unpredictability, strange as it sounds, is the key to everything that follows. Researchers who study animal behavior call this a variable reward. And it turns out that unpredictable rewards are far more powerful, far more addictive in a very literal sense than predictable ones. B.F. Skinner discovered this almost by accident, working with pigeons in the 1950s. He built a simple box where a pigeon could peck a lever and sometimes, not always, receive a pellet of food. What he found surprised him. Pigeons on a random, unpredictable schedule pecked far more often and far more compulsively than pigeons who were fed on a fixed, reliable schedule. The pigeons on the predictable schedule pecked when they were hungry and stopped when they weren't. The pigeons on the unpredictable schedule never really stopped. The randomness itself was doing something to their behavior. It was not the food driving them. It was not knowing when the food would come. Your ancestors lived inside that exact same mechanism, except for them the stakes were not a pellet. The stakes were survival. A brain that got mildly excited every time it checked a bush, a riverbank, a hunting trail, was a brain that kept checking, kept moving, kept looking. And a brain that kept checking was a brain that found food, more often than a brain that gave up after one disappointment. So evolution did not build you a reward system tuned to certainty. It built one tuned to possibility, to maybe. This is where the neuroscience gets genuinely interesting. Wolfram Schultz, a neuroscientist who spent years studying dopamine in the brain, found something that changed how scientists understand motivation itself. Dopamine, it turns out, is not really a pleasure chemical, even though that is how it is usually described. It is closer to an anticipation chemical. Schultz's research showed dopamine activity spikes highest, not when a reward actually arrives, but in the uncertain moment right before you find out whether it will. The waiting is where the chemical reward lives. The maybe is the hook, not the payoff itself. Sit with that for a second. Your brain releases its strongest chemical response not for good news, for the mere possibility of good news hanging there unresolved. Now think about your phone. Every notification is a